actually said nothing, and so I wrote him a nice letter, hoping that he had a nice time where they sent him. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take a call on this bill. Once again, I did not sit on the Select Committee that examined this bill, so have been poring over the submissions in great detail and understanding all the issues, the important issues. I do actually want to, and I would like to commend this committee for the work that's been done on this bill and the previous bill before it, because they're both they're all important issues, and they, as I said in the previous speech, they are dragging us into the internet age. Whether I describe it as a grunty little bill as opposed to a little ripper of a bill, I'm not sure. It must be great fun on that Select Committee, I think. But I do have it's more of the David Garrett, David Jackal bill, really. But the fact is that there are some significant issues behind this bill, and I think that it's important to put them on the record in the House today. And I do hope that the Privacy Commissioner is paying attention to the debate and to the importance, and as I'm sure they are, paying attention to the importance of these issues, because the key thing about this bill is that it's a consent-based service. Now, you know, my antennae waves when I hear that phrase, because while that is a good thing that it's a consent-based service, the issues will be in the implementation and how the consent actually is gained, and whether there is any coercion around gaining that consent, and whether or not that consent is freely given. So I think this is an important bill. There's no doubt that we have to take a responsible position on this as a House, and therefore, while I've read what was said by the Greens in the first reading debate about their concerns around the privacy issues and the surveillance issues, I think that the most important thing is for us to be responsible about ensuring that identity fraud isn't happening, and as much as possible that we're doing what we can through legislation to ensure that it doesn't happen. But and that is the responsible position, because there is identity fraud happening, and there will continue to be identity fraud happening through other means that this legislation cannot protect. And I think the Trade Me submission, which was quite a good submission, pointed that out. For instance, on many online sites, social networking sites, there is identity fraud happening, and this legislation doesn't cover that. And people's identities, people's information is being taken and used in all sorts of different ways across the internet, and we must be mindful of what we can put in place to protect people. But we must also be mindful on the other side of the equation of the importance of people being able to go about their business and not feel as if they're under surveillance. And while this Parliament has the role to be responsible around this issue, it also has the role to be responsible about any measures that involve any regulation of the internet. And I want to say here today, and to repeat what I said in the previous bill, that with a plea to every member in this House, particularly on the government benches, that you pay attention to the issues that lie behind any legislative measures around the internet, that freedom of expression and the ability to provide information out there is just as important as trying to prevent people from accessing and using information inappropriately. There's an important report that's come out from the Law Commission, which is around dealing with a whole lot of issues around that could have regulatory impacts on how the internet is used in New Zealand, and that there's recommendations that all publicly funded agencies should be subject to the official information request. Now, that debate is yet to be properly had in our country and in this House, and so I would ask every member to seriously do the research on these pieces of legislation and not just read the notes that are provided to you. Do the research, think about the issues, because they do have implications for all of us, and their implications around protecting the rights of individuals to not have their identities used and abused, protecting them to not be bullied and harassed, but also ensuring that we're not trying to control what people are doing and saying in this most important medium.
Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr. Speaker.